Good to see you guys.
Sorry, we'll jump right in.
I'm letting y'all take over this time.
Aaron, one of the things to know is, what's the key to turning takeaways, opportunities, into takeaways?
I think, it's obviously it's always been a point of emphasis for us, but like some guys naturally just have that instinctive mindset and ability. And I think Kanena's one of those guys, right? I think our linebacking core, they're trying to punch at the ball every opportunity they get, and so from the time we started spring ball, from the time we got here, there's always been a huge emphasis on, like, the ball is the most important thing. The ball is the most important thing, and there were we had a cut up of just some opportunities of the ball being exposed and guys taking on their blocks, getting off their blocks, right, trying to make an effort to get the ball out. Like, at the end of the day, like, we're trying to give our offense as many possessions as possible, and so we're always trying to have that mindset of, okay, how can we gain another possession to take in taking the ball away? And so I thought, just overall, I thought guys would just try to capitalize on that, and it worked this past game for us. Obviously, the games prior to that, we hadn't had as many, and so every week we go into practice, there's always an emphasis on that, and I think, they come in threes, right? Takeaways come in threes, and I think it ended up being that way because guys were forcibly, every opportunity we got, and they coming on the sideline, let's not forget about the ball. So just constantly reminding them every time they came over, and we had some guys make some really good plays on that.
When you have a run of getting turnovers like you did in the last game, do you think that helps you guys get turnovers moving forward? Or more
Yeah,
turnovers?
100%, man, because I think it just provides that spark. Every time we were in those situations to gain turnovers, or every time we were on the field to play defense, guys just had this sense of urgency, like, hey, we got to take this ball back. It was no looking around, like, we got to take this ball back. We got to get the ball back as fast as we can, and if we do get it back, we got to try to score with it, And so I think guys really, really bought into that. Not that they didn't buy into it in the other weeks, but there was always a sense that during the course of this game, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. And so I think when the ball was being taken away, right, there was like, how can we go and score? How can we advance the ball and get it down the field? A couple of times, obviously, it was on the ground. We just jumped on it. But that's the whole mindset, just from our defensive perspective, of just trying to get it back as many times as we can. And naturally, I think once one occurs and they see the fruits of their labor when one occurs, that's when you start getting 2, 3, and 4, and the sky's the limit from there.
Coach, what's kind of the balance between wanting to bring some pressure and also not wanting to put young DBs out on an island?
Yeah, obviously it's definitely a thin line, because you try to balance between, okay, we can't be in coverage all day. Well, the way you're not in coverage all day is you try to bring more than they can block, right? Knowing that you're going to be in coverage at some standpoint. Then you try to just mix it up. Okay, well, maybe we don't bring pressure this time and we play a form of zone. And so it's just trying to play a cat and mouse game between myself and their quarterback, based on the looks that I've been seeing throughout the week and on film, And so I think a couple of times they thought that we were bringing pressure, and he kind of threw into a zone coverage, and we were able to make a play on it. And at times he thought I was bringing or playing zone, and we were bringing pressure. It kind of surprised us. So just always trying to keep him on his toes, man. Like, obviously we got different players this year than we had last year, just from a coverage standpoint, and they're younger guys. And so how can I allow our guys up front to obviously affect the quarterback and trying to get hands on them as soon as possible, so we don't have to be in coverage that long, man. It is a fine line, man. And there isn't always a suitable answer to that. It's just, I'm just trying to change the picture every chance I get. Like, if I think that they know that I'm bringing pressure, I try to do the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Based on the down and distance, based on, I think it was at one point in time, I think it was like a 3rd and 6, and or 3rd and 8. We had been playing man to man every 3rd down at that point, and he assumed I was bringing some pressure, and we actually had a 3-man rush. Almost got home, and Xavier gets an interception. And so it's a cat and mouse game, and just trying to, not always trying to be perfect, but put our guys in a position where we're kind of showing pressure and we can get out of it, and vice versa. So I wish I can pinpoint it and tell you that it's 60-40 or that it's 70-30, but it's not. It's literally 50-50, and it's based on what I'm seeing off their formation or based on what I'm seeing in the flow of the game. You know, you can study an opponent throughout the course of the week, and their breakdown, they come into the game and they're a tad bit different than they show you on film because they watch film as well, they watch tape as well, and so just always trying to be a step ahead, you know, and trying to change it up for the quarterback whether they think we're bringing pressure or they think we're dropping guys out, constantly trying to change that picture for the quarterback, and it's going to be very huge that I do it obviously this week because the quarterback at Maryland, he's different. He's a really good player.
How unique is your prep for Maryland and Elliott? Kind of
Yeah, it's the prep has been going well. Obviously, we're still in it. You know, like we're not going to get completely away from what we do as a whole, but we're going to have tweaks in our game plan where we allow guys to, whether that's bring more than they can block or presenting a picture of bringing more than they can block and get guys out of there or showing and bringing them. And so just always, my goal is to always just change the picture for him, right? Because I know he's a very intelligent quarterback, right? And he's trying to diagnose things before the ball is snapped and he's trying to get a feel for what he thinks we're in, right? And he has throws that he'll go to if he thinks we're in a zero pressure. He has throws that he'll go to if he thinks that we're in a drop eight coverage. And so my goal is to try to make that as hard as possible for him. But not only is he good, the cats around him are just as talented. You know what I'm saying? And so he has some really good weapons on the outside, and giving our guys, trying to give our guys an advantage up front in rushing the passer when they do throw the ball, because I mean they're not trying to hide what they do, right? They got really talented group of running backs, but their quarterback he's going to play on Sunday, right? And they want to get him in a position to where he can throw that ball and air that thing out. They are going to run the football, but they are centered and focused around airing it out and throwing the ball around a little bit. And so, because they got some talented dudes out there at wide receiver, and their tight end group is ridiculous, right? Their backs out of the backfield can catch the ball extremely well, and so this is going to be a really, really good matchup for us. I do like our ability to match up with them, but more importantly, I like our ability to my ability in trying to confuse the quarterback and just give them different pictures and allow those 4 guys up front, 5 guys up front to try to get after them a little bit.
So what do you feel like happened on that first drive to go from severely backed up to field goal range, and how did your guys kind of bounce back?
Yeah, man, I mean, I think it's right, like obviously the first drive you would want to keep them down there, but they obviously decided to take a shot. That was a one-on-one matchup. You know, we've been talking about all week winning your one-on-one matchups, and I have to do a better job at putting our players in a position, right, to knowing that we have a different group of guys, not exposing them to that one-on-one matchup, right? Maybe it was a little more zone there, right, that I could have helped that young man, right? At times we are going to be in one-on-one matchups, but that was a 2nd and 10 play. 2nd and 10 was a get back on track for them, and they were heavy pass, right? I could have definitely helped that young man in that situation, in terms of with a call to put him in a position to where he didn't have to just live on an island and play man-to-man. And obviously you learn those things as the game kind of progresses and you get a feel for it, right? We were playing a lot of man, end up going to a little more zone as the game kind of progressed, because they were making some really, really good catches in one-on-one coverage, right? Obviously we had some young guys out there covering them, but they were making some great catches, right? They're on scholarship as well. They got good players as well. And so just trying to give our guys an opportunity to, okay, we're going to play man, we're going to play a little bit of zone, we're going to sprinkle in some man, okay, we're going to be heavier zone on this picture. And so, again, I think that falls squarely on my shoulders and putting that young man in a better situation on that, put him in a better call on that situation, because it was a backed up, they were on the 1-yard line, 2-yard line, right? That's heavy take a shot scenario, right? To kind of help them out. I thought they were going to try to run the ball and end up punting it and get themselves some room, because they had shown that. But kudos to them taking the shot down the field. The receiver made a heck of a catch, right? Again, that's a 50-50 ball. You hope that they fall in our favor more often than not. In that particular situation, it fell in their favor. Obviously, it ended up leading to 3 points that drive, which in those situations you would like not to have any points, but that squarely falls on my shoulders.
Pretty good game from the inside backers, and that was without Tariq. So did you feel like that group turned a corner a little bit?
Oh, dude, those guys played lights out, man. They were flying to the ball. They were making plays. I felt like from a schematic standpoint, us jumping in and out of 3 and 4 down, it kind of created an element of confusion for our opponent to a degree, and it allowed them just to play free, man. Like it was no thinking. I think that was the smallest that was the smallest my call sheet had been, all right, in like the last 3 weeks, you know, and they knew everything that was taking place. They knew when it was happening, and they were able to fly to the ball. And I think with the way they played and executed from that position, I think that kind of showed, you know. They're just fearless dudes, man. Like Kanina, the way Kanina played, the way Dylan Rosiak played, the way Cruz played. Like, I was so proud of those guys, man, because like to see the growth that they've made from the first game to now, they're definitely getting better, and they're becoming leaders and catalysts for this defense.
Aaron, when you guys struggle like this to start the season, what do you say to recruits? What's the message to recruits right now?
The message to recruits as a whole, man, is right. I think anytime you're building something, right, and anytime you're trying to grow something, people oftentimes expect instantaneous results, right? We obviously had success last year, right? Like that's clear as day, right? But from the success we had last year, they don't realize that those guys had to go through their own struggles and their own experience prior to us getting here, right? And from those struggles and that experience that they had, they were able to learn from it, which in turn resulted in to them not only playing well for us the latter part of their career, but ultimately parlayed to them getting drafted. You know, people oftentimes want to look at the final product or what they deem as the final product and say that's what it is. Well, we are a developmental program. That's what it is, right? There's no bones about it. We got to continue to develop our roster. We got to continue to put our players in a position to have success. But that's part of the journey, man. Like every year is going to be a new year, right? Like, and that's just, we happen to have for year 1 we won 5 games. Year 2 we won 8, right? Right now, obviously we hadn't had the same amount of success as we had year 1. We've lost players. We've lost some players. Right? That means other players have to step up. Younger players have to grow from those situations. And I think you just keep chopping, man. You keep doing what you're doing from a standpoint, but you have to be able to tweak it. Like what I happened to learn in the last 6 games is, you know, people study our defense, and they are running everything you can think imaginable, right, to understand, right, and how to attack our defense because they spent the whole offseason studying it. And so we can't live in the defense that we ran last year. 1, we ain't got the same players, and 2, people know how to attack it. And so you got to change the picture. You got to do something a little bit different that people may be uncomfortable with, which is fine. It's fine with them being uncomfortable with that, but this is the potential result you can get from it if you decide to change it or tweak it, and if you decide to live in it. And so it's just my job as the guy that's running the show to be the coordinator and lead us in those and when we have those opportunities. Right, here's the plan, here's the mission. Right, if I'm flying off the cuff every meeting I get, you have guys who aren't going to lead. I will say this about our players, right? It hasn't been what we wanted in terms of the win and loss column, but none of those guys have wavered, and that's credit to our leadership. That's credit to our head coach. That's credit to the guys that we have leading them in our defensive meeting room. And these guys want to do what's right. Right, they're gonna play hard. I promise you, they're gonna play hard every single week. It may not be perfect, but they are going to play hard every single week. And every recruit, right, that is looking at us from this standpoint, right, we're a 2-4 football team. That's clear as day. Right, we're going to be better. We're going to be a lot better. Right, but the way you change this is you keep recruiting at a high level and at a high clip, so you have guys that can come in this program and potentially change it. Right, because at the end of the day, I can make whatever call I want to make. It's the players that make this thing come alive. Kanina Odaluga is a prime example of that. That's a routine call, a routine play call I make 100 times out of 100, and he goes in there and makes a tackle and strips the ball and takes the ball away. That's a credit to that young man.
Okay. What have you learned about maybe when to, you mentioned the call sheet and trimming it down. What have you learned this year about when to trim it and when to expand it and kind of how that balances together?
Yeah, I think it's you want to be multiple enough to have enough in your arsenal so that teams don't get a beat on you, but you also have to understand the players that you have out there, right? So Dylan Rosiak hadn't started a lot of games, right, prior to this year. Kanina Odaluga hadn't started a lot of games, right? Zach Toby had to start a lot of games. Xavier Scott had to start a lot of games. Miles Scott had to start a lot of games, right? We got a bunch of guys who hadn't played a lot of football, right? And so as I'm looking at the grand scheme of, okay, well, where are we having mental errors at? Okay, we're having mental errors on these calls. Well, let us trim back on this and see how they function and process things when it's just a smaller group of calls. Although teams may have a beat, but that will allow us to play a lot faster, and that will allow us, Kanena, to make plays when they present themselves. And so it is a very fine balance. But I think as a coach, you try to gauge their interest in, hey man, is this too much? Every Friday night at the end of our meeting, I have all our players, our core group of guys who are playing a lot of ball, and I ask them, is there anything on a call sheet that's going to slow you down? And there's been times, there may be a call or two, the night before the game, I literally get rid of it, and I won't call it. Don't worry about that call, it's not going to be called. If you have questions about it the night before the game, multiple questions, right? I try to get rid of it so that guys can play fast, right, and fly to the ball. It didn't happen this past week, but it's happened prior weeks, and so I think that's a testament to the relationship that we have with a lot of our players, because a lot of players would naturally be afraid because they don't, coach, I don't want to, no man, this ain't about me, this is about you. And so I think there's always going to be imbalance, but it's from my standpoint, I have to find a way, continue to find a way to, okay, based on what I'm seeing, what's the best call or going to allow us to play the fastest, and also help us from a schematic standpoint. So that's the game, I guess, of chess you play day in and day out.
Thanks,